Hey, everybody. As you can hear, we are recording this meeting. Welcome. We're really excited that you could join us. For some of you, it's in the middle of your day. For some of you, it's in the morning. And regardless, we're really excited that all of you could join us. For those well over 100 of you that registered for this meeting, please be aware that this recording will be made available to you. We'll send a link after the meeting to everybody who has registered so that for those that weren't able to join, you'll have an opportunity to hear the conversation. Obviously, you won't be able to ask any questions at that point. But I will tell you that we will do our darndest to make sure that all of your questions are answered. And I'll go over the protocol a little bit as soon as we make our introductions. The first person I need to introduce to you is somebody I work very closely with throughout the year, and that is Angela Williams. And she is our coordinator of sport and works with me at the NFHS. And again, my name is Sandy Searcy. I'm the liaison for water polo. We also have two individuals that will be presenting a lot of this material today. Christine Pally, she has served as our National Water Polo Chair. Christine, would you hop on screen and say hi? I think I surprised her.
You're
Sorry,
muted.
Christine.
You're muted, Christine.
There we go. Hi there. Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. And Christine has done a fantastic job for us. Very high school centric. She always has been, and she makes sure that's loud and clear during our meetings. Also with this is Levon Dimenjian. And Levon is our National Water Polo Rules Committee member, as well as he wears a heck of a lot of other hats having to do with USA Water Polo. Levon, would you like to get on and say hello?
Hey, everybody, great to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. I know I saw some as you were hopping on, there are other committee members on this call. We always encourage committee members to participate in all of our meetings so they can hear the conversation and use that conversation when we meet for our rules committee meeting and consider rule proposals that are submitted. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to, our mode of operation today is to go through some slides, a little bit about the NFHS, a little bit about the rules writing process. We're going to talk about, as you can see on this slide, we're going to talk about the rule changes, the major editorial changes, and the points of emphasis. And Christine will take part of that. Levon will take another part. At any time during the meeting, if you have a question, we would ask you to put it in the chat. And we will stop and answer those questions as slides come up. So we'll be intermittent throughout this presentation. Make sure that you have an opportunity to ask those questions. But we want to make sure that everybody is muted and answer or ask your questions through the chat. It just makes for a more orderly process. So if you would accommodate us, that would be fantastic. So let's get started. The first slide is obviously NFHS information. We like to talk a little bit about how rule proposals are submitted. And that has, there are three ways proposals can be submitted to the NFHS. Not only from the liaison, which is myself, but also committee members and state associations. This is important to note. Each state adheres to a different protocol or process. Some states have advisory committees that they have these conversations with and determine which proposals are going to be submitted. Some allow their entire membership, their entire state association membership. So coaches, officials are allowed to submit proposals. But the way our system is set up, all proposals in that regard have to go through the state association. So the state association has to bless those proposals before they reach the NFHS. Committee members can propose rules directly outside of the state association. And of course, the third way, myself as the liaison may submit the rule proposals. So it's definitely a grassroots type of operation here. We respond to our membership. We answer to our membership, and our role as a committee is to deliberate the proposals, make sure that they come from the grassroots, make sure it's something that the membership wants to see happen. We consider all of the positive and negatives, unintended consequences, things of that nature, and we adhere to risk minimization and the benefits of a particular rule. But it is a grassroots organization, and so we rely on you and your feedback to make this process work. So proposals can be made on our www.nfhsrule.org website, and these are a couple links, but it's really dependent upon how your state conducts its business, and they will relay that process to you if you have questions about particular rule proposals you wish to submit. We have standard rule proposal dates. I should have said at the beginning that NFHS Water Polo Rulebook is a 2-year rulebook. Our Rules Committee meets every year, starting this year in January, and we will continue on throughout the near future in January, so that we can have rule books ready for you, the membership, in the fall before your fall seasons. But every other year we consider rule proposals, which is important to note. Coming up, obviously, we're in the interim. We're at the second year of a 2-year rule book, and so we will talk about and consider how the rules that we proposed last year, how they're affecting the country. If there are any problems out there, that will be the main focus of our conversation coming up on January 10th. But typically these are standardized. Just to let you know, our country is separated into 8 separate sections, and that's typically how we select the representatives on each rules committee. In our case, in Water Polo's case, we have representations from 7 and 6 and 4 and 3. We have 4 sections represented on our rules committee, 2 individuals from each section, and then we have our committee chair, and eventually we will have our Coaches Association representative and our Officials Association representative. So typically there are anywhere from 11 to 15 representatives on a rules committee. It is a combination of administrators, coaches, and officials. It's a very robust conversation. It's typically the experts in the country pertaining to the sport involved with that rule committee discussion. And it's a high-level conversation, and it's a lot of fun. In our case, it's a virtual meeting. On those years that we're considering real proposals, it may be a meeting that lasts 6 or 7 hours. So it's really intense, but just know that we spend quite a bit of time considering what is great for high school sports and high school water polo. This is our rules review committee. This is all of the directors that meet after the committee determines what proposals should be considered, and rules review directors vet each proposal and make a determination whether it's appropriate for the high school space. This is the particular rule committee this past year. You will see some of these folks on this call today. And again, experts from across the country. We talk about writing playing rules for 17 sports for boys and girls at the high school level. Christine reminded me yesterday that we are working on creating a rule book for a new sport. It's been 17 sports forever, but now we are contemplating putting together a rule book for flag football. And that process begins in January as well. So coming soon, we will have an NFHS rule book for flag football. It's kind of exciting. We have a mobile app for all access. That has not been the most successful app in the world, and we're doing quite a bit of work to make it more effective and more user-friendly. But just wanted to put that in front of you. Obviously, this is for the baseball rulebook, but there is an app out there that your state associations may provide to you, or you may purchase on your own for water polo. Okay, we're going to talk about water polo rule changes. I will do the first slide for Christine because I usually do this for the membership. This is a slide having to do with accommodations, providing accommodations for student athletes. And most of our state associations at this point do have a process in place. They communicate that process to the athletic administrators in their state. But we want to make sure the coaches and officials on this call are aware of said process. It's a little bit different for each state, but basically we ask those schools that have athletes that require or desire an accommodation to work with their school to reach out to their state association. The state association may have a separate committee, a risk minimization or accommodations committee where they consider requests. And then that request is granted, and typically an athlete and the coach will carry a form of communication that lets the officials know that said accommodation has been approved. There are states out there that allow their officials to consider accommodations on the deck, for example. I think Colorado allows officials to determine on deck whether an accommodation is appropriate or not. So it's a little bit different depending on the state. Christine, take it away. Is Christine still on?
He's muted.
Here we go. All
Sorry about
right.
that, Christine.
No, you're totally fine. Probably my fault. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome. And we're just going to go over some of the new rules that you may or may not have been using, depending on when your state is playing. I know in the state of California, I believe Texas, we play in the fall. Some of you play in the spring, but our girls in California play in the winter, if you can believe that, outdoors. So you may or may not have seen some of these, so we're just going to go over them. If you need any clarifications at any time during this, either myself or Levon or Sandy or Angela will be monitoring the chat, and hopefully we can get all of your questions answered. So please don't be shy. This is definitely a tool for you and a resource for you to get any clarifications that you may need. So first, we're going to just talk about the new markers, the pool markers, the continuous red marking that will be placed on either side of the goal line, 2 meters from the outside of each goal post. What that does, it creates an imaginary line from the end of each red marking to that 2-meter line, defining that goal area. If you saw any part of the Olympics, it kind of made the game a lot more interesting to allow players inside the 2 that are now not affecting play right in front of that goal, but we do still have that goal area that'll now be defined. So there's a number of ways that this can be done. And Sandy, will you help me advance some of these, or am I? Oh, there we go. Perfect. You can do those red markings. I've seen red tape on pool decks. I've seen paint. Cones have been used. If you're fortunate enough to have floating goals in a large pool, you can definitely get new markers for your lane lines. And if you need any resources or any ideas or pictures of any of this, please feel free to email me. I have some great visual photos just that I've taken in pools that I've seen where folks have gotten creative. Obviously, some schools may have different resources than others, but I've seen some pools that have just done red paint and made it look very, very nice on their pool deck, and folks have gotten creative. So I have some visuals if you need those. But basically, you're just marking outside of those goalposts 2 meters on each side. And then the next slide, And there you can see with those 2 meters and then the 2-meter line from the edge of the goal to 2 meters, that kind of defines that goal area, which I think Levon will be talking about a few things as well when it comes to some rules and standards that apply to that. So used to be that we weren't allowed inside of 2 meters all the way out to the lane line and maybe to the wall potentially, but now it's only defined in that space. You cannot be inside of 2 meters, but if you're outside of that goal area, you can be inside the 2, whereas previously you couldn't. Right. Next slide. For the balls, so now we used to have a rule that said that balls had to be predominantly yellow or gold, but now as you've seen, the design of Cap 7 balls or even Mikasa balls has changed over the years. People are playing in different conditions, some low light, some at night, some may have issues with lights, and some may have pools that light up like it's daytime. So we've allowed kind of whatever the condition of your particular lighting is, you can use a ball that has different colors paneled. You can still use the fully yellow ball if that's your preference, but you can also have balls customized to your school colors as well. So we've kind of removed the restriction of the predominantly yellow ball. Okay, so there was a point in time, I think a few years ago, maybe Levon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but someone asked us, where does it say in the rule book that you can only have one goalie in the field of play at the same time? And it was more of an assumption than an actual rule. So we put language in there that specified only one person could be in the field of play with a goalkeeper's cap, wearing that goalkeeper's cap. But now we have something where it defines if someone were to enter the field of play with another goalkeeper cap on, that they would be defined as an illegal player. So if there are 2 players in the field wearing goalkeeper's caps, the second one that enters is an illegal player. This is for when we start the shot clock in terms of taking possession of the ball. And I don't know if you've ever seen at the beginning of the game, maybe one team will sprint and one team may not. And, you know, if you're not being challenged for the ball, perhaps you're not in a hurry to touch it. Previously, when we took possession of it, it kind of meant taking the ball into our possession, and that's when the shot clock could actually start. But if you didn't technically touch it, does the clock start? Does it not? Now, if you are in that vicinity, let's say you're sprinting up to the ball, you do, once you are in the vicinity of that ball where only you can take possession, that clock will start, especially off of those sprints at the beginning of the game. You couldn't unchallenged let your offense go set up and then touch the ball to where the clock would start. So there's not like that stalling piece at the beginning of a quarter. I think that would be kind of an example where this might be the best visual to describe. This particular note added just the definition that when there's a correctable error, if the referee has removed the ball from the water, we wouldn't want to take away the advantage of a team that could potentially attack had that correctable error not happened. So we want to make sure that instances where the referee is pulling the ball out of the water, that the attacking team still has all of the same goal scoring opportunities despite being interrupted by that stoppage in play. So we want to make sure that once that ball is put back in, they have the same ability to score directly on a corner throw after the referee puts that ball back in the water. Let's see here. Okay, and then this one is to not stop advantage where on a counterattack, you may be up with multiple players on a counterattack. And let's say a foul is kind of, or a contra foul is committed in between 2 players. Someone that has advantage wouldn't necessarily have to turn around to take the ball if there's another player in the vicinity that can also take possession. So the free throw can be taken outside of the goal area. Oh, I'm so sorry. Are we one ahead? My apologies. Sorry, I'm on the wrong side. I apologize. Okay, sorry. Free throws. This is just the location of the ball, except if a foul is committed inside the goal area. So this would be moving the ball outside of the goal area if a foul occurs inside. So it's just like when we used to move a ball outside of the two, when we were fouled inside the two, it's the same thing for this goal area. When you are fouled inside that goal area, you would move the ball outside of the goal area prior to putting it back in play. All right, and then I think this one, Levon, I think this is you. I skipped ahead a slide, and my apologies on that.
No worries. Thanks, Christine.
Sorry.
Everybody. Yeah, one question from that last slide that we get a lot is, if I move it outside the goal area, do I still have to move it outside the 2-meter area? And the answer is no. So if you move laterally outside of the goal area, so let's say you go sideways towards the side and you're still within the 2-meter area, yes, you are allowed to take that free throw just as long as you are outside that goal area. So no need to take it outside of the 2 towards half pool, let's say, right? So just want to clarify that because that is a confusing aspect of this that we've received in the past. So, okay, moving on, the one that Christine was discussing, which was when there is a counterattack, the player does not need to give up their advantage to go get the ball, whether it's backwards, whether it's sideways. The next closest player can go get the ball as long as there's no undue delay with that player. Now, that second player must go get the ball. You cannot allow another player to go pass the ball or leave that ball, and a third or fourth player going and taking the free throw. That is an undue delay. So that is not allowed. One thing about this particular rule that we have gotten is confusion that a lot of referees and coaches believe that it's anytime that the game is going on, if the ball is there, I can just leave it and go, and the next player can go get it. That is incorrect. The rule is very specific. It is when there is a counterattack, that's number one, and a player with advantage position, right? So if you don't have an advantage position and you just leave the ball there when you are the closest player to go get the ball, that is a violation. So just want to be clarified because there is some confusion on this particular rule. Moving on to the next slide. Inside the goal area specific. So this is just clarifying more of the goal area. That means that the player outside of the goal area can go inside 2 meters without being penalized. They can camp out there. That's not a problem. One issue with referees that referees must be aware of is a righty on the 4-5 side or a lefty on the 1-2 side. If they move down, many times that ball is taken out of bounds. So out of bounds is beyond the face of the goal, outside, right, the goal line. And once that crosses, technically the ball is considered to be out of bounds. So if the referee is in the correct position and sees that that ball clearly crosses over and is out of bounds, that is a violation. The ball should be turned over. So the referee should not penalize an attacking player who momentarily enters that goal area and then realizes that, oh, I'm in the goal area, and then quickly
Perfect.
leaves without interfering with play. So if the player camps out there, then yes, after a few seconds, the referee should call inside the goal area violation. Now, another thing as well is that from the sides, it is difficult to tell sometimes if that player is inside of the goal area from the side. The referee is to assume that the player is not in the goal area. If they are unsure whether it's close or not, they are to assume that the player is not in the goal area. And also, one other thing to clarify is being on the 2-meter line does not consider, or being on the line is not considered being inside of the goal area. You must be completely inside, and we judge that by the head of the player. Okay. clarifies that next slide is clarifies a player in the goal area of the attacking team can never be in front of the line of the ball at any time. A player in the attacking goal can never be in the front of the line of the ball. So basically, the easiest way to explain this is it's kind of like a lateral in football. It must be on a straight line, the pass to a player who's inside the goal area, or that pass has to go backward. It can never go forward toward the goal line. And if it does, and that player moves into the goal area or is already in the goal area and goes to meet and receive the ball, that is a violation. Now, it's that is regardless of if the two players, the passing player and the player who's receiving, if they're on the same line before that pass is made, it does not matter. If that player has to move forward and that ball is on a line that is going towards the goal line and has to go meet and catch the ball, that is considered offsides and it is a violation. So one difference, this rule interpretation this particular year that we had is a wet pass. So if a wet pass is made into the goal area, the player who is outside of the goal area is allowed to go into the goal area and get the ball. As long as that, if the ball is in flight and it's a wet pass, if that player moves into the goal area to go get a wet pass as the ball is in flight, it is considered a violation. So, but if it lands and the player's outside of the goal area and goes and retrieves it, it's okay. It's seen as a player going and getting a loose ball. Okay. I see a couple of chats going off here. Before I move any further, let me see if there's any questions we can clarify here before we go on to too much.
As you're looking at that, Levon, I would
Mhm.
remind everyone, please keep your chat open so you could take a look at this, but we will provide a record of the questions. And if we can't answer them, if we run out of time, we've done this the last couple of years, we will go back, answer those questions and provide them to you. We'll email you that set. So if you have any questions that need clarification, please do it now. Here's your chance.
Levon, I'm going to let you answer Duye's question because I think that's a one that would be best received by you.
Yeah, okay. Which one? Let's see. There's
So when can a player have hips inside the goal area and the head on the line as preparation of receiving the ball and a faster attack if and when the ball comes in?
yes,
So I think the
because
head
the
on the
head,
two.
right. We judge it by the head. So the hips can be inside the goal area. It would not be considered being inside the goal area. So good question. Let's see what else. We had one. Let me see on the sprint for player for the sprint. Is a player's the vicinity of the ball, but takes their time to put the ball in play. When can the defense access the ball? I'm assuming 3 seconds. So if it's a sprint, anyone can access the ball. The defense has no obligation to wait any seconds. So once the ball sprint, anyone can go play it. If the person who's closest to the ball chooses not to play it, the defense, yes, can go swim up and play the ball anytime. It's not a free throw at that junction. It's just a sprint, so anyone can play it. Let's see what else. Can we clarify amount of separation required? Yep, we're going to get to that, Cameron, on that question. Also, you mentioned, all right, leading pass rule in the case where referees call tournament and others don't. Yeah, that's there's going to be some discrepancies between referees of like which referee believes that that is a forward pass. I would advise referees that you have to be in the best position to see the trajectory of the pass, the angle in which it's being made. And sometimes referees are going to get it right, sometimes they are not, unfortunately. And so we just try to tell our referees to be in the best position as possible to make the correct call. But this particular rule makes it easier for referees to get it right. So all they have to do is see the line of the ball. Once it's going forward, they don't even need to wait for the player to catch the ball. It's immediately turnover if they see that it is going to a player inside the goal area. Okay. You also asked about, do you have a question about new rules? That won't be considered until next year. And then next year, anyone could submit a new rules proposal and we would vote on it and would have to get approved, and that whole process would have to take its course. So, okay, perfect. Let's move on. Couple of graphics that show what is allowed and what is not allowed when it comes to the goal area. As you can see on your left side of your screen, a player who is receiving the pass is deep inside the 2-meter area, which is completely okay because they are outside of the goal area. So no violation. Here's another one where the player who has the ball in their hand is forward. So the player who is receiving it is behind the line of the ball. As long as they pass it on a forward line or behind, perfectly allowed. Here's what is not allowed, which is the forward pass into a player who is in the goal area. So this particular player would probably normally be called for inside the 2 violation anyway, or inside the goal area violation, because they are so deep. And my assumption would be they they are not making an effort to get out if they're that deep in the goal area. But a more proper example of a player, a forward pass into the goal area that we see is a player on the post, right? It's usually a 6-on-5, and they're going for that slam dunk. Many times that you see our very own Ben Halleck do very well on the national team. So that is where we see most of the forward passes into the goal posts. Here's another one where the player who is receiving the pass in the white circle is ahead of the line of the ball. So they are considered offsides, and that would be a violation. Okay. Moving on to some editorial changes. A couple of things that wording, right? So this one pertains to alcohol and substance, any form of alcohol or tobacco, team personnel coach. So a couple little changes here. Remove some phrasing. Okay.
Levon, we had a question regarding swimming
Sure.
through the goal area without the ball. Is that allowed at all?
That is not allowed. So just as in the previous rule where you would swim from one deep wing to the other, if you go through the goal area, that means that you are inside the goal area. So, and as long as you stay behind on the ball, it would be fine. But I'm assuming that most cases you're not going to be behind the line of the ball and you're going to be swimming through. That would be considered a violation. Okay, any other questions? Did I miss any?
I think you did. Tyler's asking on that last
Okay,
graphic, if the legal pass is made, is it a turnover? I can back up.
Sure. If illegal pass is made, is that a term? Let's see. So this would be a turnover regardless of a pass is made or not, because at no point can you be ahead of the line of the ball in the game. So in this particular case, that player is ahead of the line of the ball. That would be a violation in and of itself. But yes, if there is a pass that comes to this particular player, that would be considered a forward pass, a legal pass, and it would be a turnover.
Do we have everything else, Christine?
There's another one that just came in. So a common foul would be called when the player is ahead of the ball. That would be the violation there. So there's no need to wait for a pass to be made. But if for whatever reason the referee doesn't see it or is not aware in that moment, once that pass is made, it could be called then as well, because you have 2 violations in one in this particular case, because not only is the player ahead of the ball and now the pass comes to them. So the referee could technically choose either one. Obviously, the first one, just being ahead of the line of the ball, is the violation there. So, okay, let's see. Okay, moving on to the points of emphasis. So we already talked about this clarification that the referee should assume that the player is not in the goal area if they're not certain, and being on the line is not considered being inside the goal area. This is an issue that we've not only seen, but we've gotten so many reports throughout the country where not only are referees rewarding ordinary fouls with a ball in hand, but that coaches are expecting a reward of an ordinary foul with ball in hand. And this is not correct. In multiple places in the rule book, it's clear that you are allowed to be tackled when you have the hand on the ball. And of course, this is not anything violent or over aggressive, anything that has to do with the head and neck region where a referee has to deem it a safety issue and has to address it. But I am able to tackle you and take that ball out of your hand, meaning I can grab your arm, I can grab your shoulder, I can sink you, I can pull you back. I can do all those things in order to get that ball as long as it's not considered violent or over aggressive. And I think too often referees are forgetting that. And I believe coaches are as well, because they are requesting a foul to be called in those situations. So we thought it was important to make sure that it is not considered a foul. So just the mere act of me, let's say if I'm holding the ball and a defender hits or grabs my arm, which then jars the ball loose, that is not an ordinary foul in and of itself. Now, if the ball is loose and I commit another foul as the player is trying to go get the ball, that is the foul. But just me hitting your arm and now that ball is jarred loose, that it should not be considered an ordinary foul by the referees. Okay, moving on. Advantage, another one thing that we've seen across the country as well. And we thought we need to clarify. Some coaches have argued that they believe that their advantage is within a 6-on-5. So they would rather have an exclusion called when it presents itself. And so this is just to clarify that that is not the purpose of this game. The referees are to adhere to the advantage rule, which is the highest rule in the game, which means that if a player has the ability to score a natural goal or is improving their position to score a natural goal, the referee must allow that action to continue. And I understand some coaches would love to have a third personal foul on the best player of the opposing team. I understand that, but that does not give the opportunity to say that must be called. No, that does not need to be called, because the rules are very clear that the referee must withhold their whistle to allow that natural progression of the game. Now, sometimes it's a terrible feeling, right? I'm a referee. I know this. I see an exclusion. I ignore it because the player is now gaining an inside water position. Here it is. Now the player comes up, shoots, and completely misses the cage. And I have to now give the ball to the other team. Terrible feeling. Yes, there was an exclusion just before that shot was taken, but that is not an incorrect ruling on the referee. The referee did their job, which is that they ignored the foul in effort for a higher advantage, which is to score a natural goal. So we just needed to remind everyone that that is the purpose of the game, and referees are not to just award exclusions just because a foul was committed. So I see a couple of things, some chat boxing going off here. Let me double check what's going on. Couple questions. Jamie, hey, good to see you, Jamie. If you swim from a post on or outside the 2-meter line and move a spot just outside the goal area on the 1-meter line and have crossed the corner of the goal area but did not receive a pass, is that a violation? No, Jay, that would be more in line of you momentarily entered and then left. I there's things that, I think a lot of people forget the spirit of the game. The spirit of the game says that is not a violation, right? That it would be a completely cheesy call for my lack of my wording there. But no, if you just cross the corner of the goal area just to go to the side, a referee should not deem that as a violation. So, Kevin, if you have a player kicked out and a timeout is called, can you sub that player into the game and have someone else sit in the box? Get all timeout and you sub that player into so the player who was kicked out cannot be subbed in. If I'm understanding your question correctly, so the person who's kicked out must be out. They could be subbed out, and if there's a timeout, you can now put someone else in the box and have a lifetime sub. But that particular player who was kicked out cannot be in the game, unless I'm misunderstanding your question. So if you want to clarify. Okay, perfect. Okay, and then I believe this was it, Sandy, right, with the points of emphasis.
Correct.
Yeah, there was just a few other things that we wanted to discuss just because of the things that we've been observing, also the things that we've been told across the country, things that are going on. It looks like there's still confusion with the foul from behind rule within 6 meters. And I think one of the things that we're receiving is the biggest confusion is when is it a probable goal and when isn't it a probable goal? Unfortunately, that is a referee's decision on when they believe a probable goal exists, right? If a probable goal exists, yes, then that rule is in effect. You can only touch the hand or the ball. Things that referees consider when they see if the play is a probable goal situation or not is obviously the player has to be inside of 6 meters and has to be facing or swimming towards the cage. Other things that affect probable goal is the angle in which the player attacks. If so, let's say if the player is, you know, basically hugging the goal line and coming at an angle with a goalie is right there off the post, could anyone consider that a probable goal? Probably not. So that's a little bit more difficult. And also, if you have multiple players, right, in the path of the player who is going towards the cage, if a little bit off to the side, then the referee has to determine if the player off to the side is close enough to make a play on the ball. If the referee deems that the player is close enough to make a play on the ball, then technically that's not considered a probable goal, right? So there is some confusion. So just to clarify to everyone that it is dependent on if the referee believes there's a probable goal situation, then yes, that rule takes effect. If it's not a probable goal situation, the player is allowed to hit the arm and steal the ball like they would in any other point in the game, and it's not considered a foul. I know many coaches have argued, well, isn't that at least an exclusion? Unfortunately, it is not. In this rule, it's either a no call or it's a penalty. There's no in between if their player is inside water for this particular rule. So if there's no probable situation, yes, I'm allowed to hit your arm. I'm allowed to tackle you safely and take that ball away from you, and it's not considered a foul. It cannot be an ordinary. It cannot be an exclusion. So just wanted to clarify that because is still some confusion, it looks like, on that rule. Another thing that we observed and have heard, offensive fouls. Too often, offensive fouls are treated as if they are normal fouls. They are not. They are a heavy punishment. You lose the ball. So they are not equivalent to an ordinary foul. And not only some referees believe this because they call many, many offensive fouls. Many times it has no bearing on the game whatsoever. And then a lot of times we have coaches who are advocating for all kinds of contra fouls to be called. That's an offensive. That's an offensive. That's an offensive. And we need to get into the habit of no, it is not. Minor fouls against the offense when it has no bearing on the play should not be called. It is detrimental to the game. The advantage rule states it's very clear that we should officiate in favor of the offense when possible. And for those of us who have been around the sport for a long time, we know that the number one killer of flow is offensive fouls, especially away from the ball. Nobody's watching, nobody knows what's going on, and here it is, an offensive foul comes. So let's make sure that as referees, if there's a behavioral issue, right, that you have to call whatever, high elbow out of the water as you're trying to get position, and you need to address it, of course. Little things that have, little minor holding away from on the side of the pool when the ball's on the other side of the pool, things that have no bearing on the play, those are see and forget. Those are not having any effect on the play. So please, let's get into the habit of not considering offensive fouls as a normal foul because they are not. So, and then also, lastly, just regarding ordinary fouls, holding the ball is a problem, but what we see that there is a large discrepancy not only between referees, but then referee within themselves when an ordinary foul is called and when it's not called. And I think for referees, we need to do a better job of, if the defender is clearly trying to foul and is fouling players in 6 meters, 7 meters, 8 meters, whatever, if they're fouling, it's a foul. And what we see too often is that it takes the referee three times before they make an ordinary foul call. Shouldn't be the case if the defender is actually fouling. Then on the reverse side is that we see is that defender is trying to clearly play good defense, not trying to foul, and the foul comes too quickly. So that's a very big swing between it, and sometimes we see it within the same referee in the same game. So we're advising referees to be a little bit more consistent. Think carefully what you're observing and try to be consistent with yourself when it comes to ordinary foul calls. Okay. If there's no other questions, I will
There
pass
was
it
one
on.
question.
Okay.
Nyla asked about the advantage rule. They're giving the player the opportunity to finish, but if the foul stops them from scoring, should the penalty or exclusion then be called?
Yes, good question. So there's two different types. If the foul affects the player from scoring in that moment, then absolutely it is a penalty. If it happens, 2-3 seconds beforehand, and the player is no longer affected by the foul that happened 2-3 seconds ago, then it's not called. That's the delayed penalty that World Aquatics is doing, but we are not doing it here in the United States. So for example, the one I always give is that, let's say I'm progressing towards the cage and I have the ball in hand, and as I go to shoot and I'm in a probable goal situation, the player hits my shoulder, which then the ball flies over the cage as I shoot it. They clearly affected my shot. So yes, the ball flew over the cage, but it's still a penalty. The one that wouldn't be, so let's say you are fouling me, you're hitting my arm as I'm progressing, but then I break away, I pump, fake, whatever, and I shoot, and I clearly miss on my own, even though I was fouled a second or two ago, that would not be considered a penalty. So just want to clarify the two. One is considered delayed, one is considered in the moment that affected the shot, and the one that's in the moment that affected the shot is the penalty. Okay, if it doesn't look like there's any other questions.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the last one. I have a few slides left, but I would remind everybody, this is an opportunity that is not afforded to any other coaches or officials for any other sport in the country, to have an opportunity to ask rule interpreters and committee members direct questions. So while I'm finishing up with some of the NFHS resources, if you have a question to ask, it will help others. So please do it in the chat so we can provide the answer. We got to stick together, and this is all good. So keep those questions coming. Officials education, Levon again is part of that, as well as Christine. We have a Center for Officials Services. We will talk about a new course coming down the pike here pretty soon that committee members will be working on. Get ready, committee members. But this area is for officials only, and there will be an effort to provide resources and all sorts of things that will help officials in general, but also sport-specific officials coming soon. This is the course I referenced. Levon and myself and Christine and the committee members will be bringing this to you soon. Certainly within the year, but we're working hard to make sure that this course is a comprehensive course to help that new water polo officiating official, and we're really excited about it, and stay tuned. We'll let you know when it's ready to launch. Some of you may have visited the NFHS Learning Center to take some health and safety courses. This will be our first water polo course, but there are lots of other courses that school corporations and state associations have required, having to do with heat acclimation, concussion. I could roll a bunch off my tongue, but basically, if some of you are familiar with this and some of you have not visited at this point, I would suggest you do so. NFHSlearn.com. Go check it out. Many of the courses are free. So invite everybody to go check that location out. Here are some of the courses that I was going to regurgitate to you, but you can read the slide. It's comprehensive, and it addresses information that is beneficial for students, coaches, officials, administrators. So please visit.
Levon, I have, there's another question that I would like for you to address if possible. It's pulling and grabbing with grab and go on the drives to create advantage or transition. Sometimes those are obvious and the defense can lose a good position. Do you call the foul when it happens or only if the ball comes in or is about to come in?
On drives, especially on drives, it is called when it happens because it does lead to the defense having to drop back, where we have countless videos that we show as well that leads to a direct advantage situation. So the ball does not need to arrive, especially on a drive. If they do commit a clear offensive foul, we want them to call that offensive foul when it happens. On the counterattack, it's a little bit different. Many times little things, little tug and pulling, we're trying to get an advantage with each other kind of thing happens. And many times it works out itself. And if you don't see a clear advantage gained, then I don't think that it's necessary. Many times the little pulls then kind of work itself out sometimes. So yeah, so that's a little bit more of a patience thing on the transition, but on the drives, it would be right away, especially clear pulling, going or ducking under, gaining advantage, things of that nature. Yes, right away. So
Okay, so okay, I'm putting this in and I'll enter it into the chat.
yeah, and then I think there was a couple more, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Rosie asked, what if a player from behind has their hands up and doesn't hit the offensive player's elbow or shoulders, etc.? Is that a 5 meter? No, there actually has to be a foul in order for it to be a penalty. So what I will say about that is that many times we do see a player with hands up but leaning on the player, right? So that is considered impeding. So if you're leaning on the player, a lot of times what happens is they put their hands up and they give their back, but they're still leaning on top of the player. That is considered impeding, which then could be considered a foul and it could be a penalty. But no, if you have your hands up and you're not touching anything, then it's not a foul and it should not be called as a penalty. So let's see. I see, Christine, you're answering questions too. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. You're good.
Let's see. Let me.
There was another one about exclusions on the perimeter.
Okay, I can't see it. What was the? I can't find it. What was the question?
It says, I've seen some referees calling exclusions on the perimeter at 3, for example, usually far from the cage. When the defense is between the attacker and the goal, why would this be an appropriate call of exclusion? Been having a hard time understanding or explaining these far exclusions.
Gotcha. So
exclusionary fouls
I
on
would guess that there's so probably be one of two things if I'm gonna guess correctly. One is either it's a heavy foul, some kind of over aggressive, and that the referee has to address. Or the second thing is if I'm going to catch the ball and I get tackled, that would be considered an exclusion as well. So if the ball is being moved dry and before I'm able to catch it and you tackle me, you sink me, you hit my arm, you grab my shoulder, whatever the case may be, and I'm not able to catch the ball and to freely move the ball, which is so important in the sport, that's an exclusion, right? That same thing would be a penalty. Let's say if it was off the post, right? If a player goes to catch the ball to shoot and score on a post, it's a penalty. Same situation, but because you're so far away from the cage, you're on the perimeter, those are called exclusions. So if I'm understanding correctly, I would probably say it's one of those two things maybe that's happening that calls the exclusion. Okay, man, I'm trying to catch up
Eric
here.
asked something about will the video, I think he's talking about the course, be shared with officials and those responsible for training officials before next year. Yes, sir, it will.
Okay. And I just see that one came in from George. If they are between the attacker and the goal, but they are holding, impeding the driver, should be exclusion. If they are between the attacker and the goal, but they are holding, impeding on the driver, should be. yeah, if you are the defender holding, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're holding or impeding on the drive, it should be an exclusion. If I'm not understanding that correctly, please let me know. And then we just had another one comes in. Came in. It sounds like these rules are meant to encourage coaches to teach players to play through tough defense and finish their advantage. Is that correct? Well, not well, the purpose of the game is to score goals, is to score natural goals. And depending on the level of play, referees will adjust or should adjust what is acceptable amount of contact, what is not, and they should always ask themselves, is the player able to play through this contact and finish this play? And if the question is, and the answer is yes, then yes, they should allow them to score a natural goal. If the player cannot play through the foul and is clearly being held and cannot move, then that's the cue to the referee that this advantage situation is not going to come, or now I have to make this call. So yeah, it just depends on the situation. I don't think there's just a one size fits all answer. It just depends on the particular play. But yes, the spirit of the game is to not earn a foul, is to score goals, and the referee must allow that action to happen when possible. Is it an accepted nature for these rules and coaches to teach their players to stop their advantage, let go of the ball, swing the arm for an exclusion or penalty? Well, no, we do see that many times where the player will stop their momentum and then slap at the water or try to get a call rather than complete the play and score a goal. Um, it could be seen as simulation, that you're not trying to score a goal, especially on the foul from behind rule. The foul from behind rule, there's an element of you are trying to score a goal, right? That's the whole purpose of probable goal. How probable is it a goal if you yourself are not trying to score the goal, right? So what I would say as a coach, always, I would tell my player that always try to finish and score a natural goal. If you can't and you're being fouled and you have to drop the ball in order to continue the play, that's what you have to do in order to gain that foul, and to restore the advantage that you lost. So I hope that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't. We can discuss further.
Those are some really thoughtful questions. Thanks, everybody. Okay. Just to finish up with the last few slides, NFHS has a network, much like the Big Ten network, much like any other television network, and they solely place high school sporting events, performing arts events. They're up to probably, I think, 1 million different events per year. It's something that has been growing for the last as long as I've been at the NFHS. It's been growing by great gains, and so we have a couple of slides just talking about the network. 1 million events. The resources that are available to you, obviously, the 24-26 rulebook is available. We have all of these resources on the water polo page of the nfhs.org site, free to download. And again, at the bottom, that beginning officials course is coming soon. That's pretty much all that we had. Any additional, last question. We have something else in the chat. Love this.
If a player has inside water in the goal area and the goalie puts the ball under, some referees are calling penalty, some are calling ball under, and that is happening even after the offensive player makes the turn into 2 meters. So what is the correct call there, Lavon?
So if a goalie is in front of the player and comes out and ball unders the attacking player, it's a ball under. It cannot be a penalty. So this rule is for fouls from behind within 6 meters, behind the attacking player. So if the goalkeeper is in front and the player comes up to shoot, let's say, and the goalkeeper in the front comes and hits their arm, cannot be a foul. And I'm glad you raised this question, because that's something that we see many times, is the goalkeeper coming and hitting the ball right out of the hand or hitting the elbow from the front, and some officials are calling penalties and exclusions, which is incorrect. So in this particular case, yes, it should be a ball under. And if there are cases where you see the goalie coming and tackling from the front, it should be a no call. Those are not part of the foul from behind rule. So totally different. So thanks for that question.
Do we have any other questions? Anything for the good of the order? As usual, Levon and Christine, you do such a fantastic job, and I think you're such a huge asset to the Rules Committee and to the nation in general. And on behalf of the committee and the NFHS, thank you for agreeing to do this each year. It's made a huge difference as far as the knowledge base in our sports. So appreciate you. Again, you will receive an email once we have downloaded the video and finished the chat with all the questions to help with your education. I'd say within 48 hours or so, you should be receiving an email with the appropriate information and links. So thank you again on behalf of our NFHS Rules Committee. Have a good week and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.